The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows in the quiet house that had once been filled with laughter. I stood in the living room, clutching a framed photo of my husband, Daniel, and me on our wedding day. We were so young then, our faces lit up with joy and dreams for the future. Just 4 years ago, our love felt unshakable. But everything changed when I discovered he had fallen for my sister, Claire. The moment I learned of their affair felt surreal, as if the ground had shifted beneath my feet. I had always trusted Daniel implicitly, and Claire was my best friend. I never imagined that the two people I loved most would betray me in such a profound way. I remember the day it all unraveled like it was yesterday. It was a Saturday, and I had planned a small get-together to celebrate my recent promotion at work. I had baked cookies, set up decorations, and was filled with excitement. As guests began to arrive, laughter and chatter filled the house. Daniel was supposed to be there, but he called to say he was caught up with work. I brushed it off, knowing how dedicated he was. As the evening progressed, I noticed Claire hadn't arrived yet, which was unusual. I texted her, but there was no reply. Later that night, as I was cleaning up, I received a call from a mutual friend. "Have you seen Claire?" she asked, her voice tense. "I just saw her with Daniel at the park." My heart dropped. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. "What do you mean, with Daniel?" "They looked close," she hesitated, unsure of how to continue. "I thought you should know." The world around me blurred as I processed her words. I dropped my phone and rushed out the door, heart pounding, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The park was just a few blocks away, but it felt like an eternity as I ran. The evening air was cool against my skin, but I barely registered it. All I could think about was the image of my husband with my sister. When I arrived, I saw them, sitting on a bench under the dim glow of the park lights. They were laughing, leaning in toward each other, their bodies angled together. My breath hitched in my throat as I stepped closer, the familiar pang of betrayal twisting in my gut. I called out to them, my voice shaky but loud enough to break their bubble. "Daniel! Claire!" They both turned, surprise etched on their faces. Claire's eyes widened, and Daniel's expression shifted from shock to something akin to guilt. I felt a wild surge of emotions, a mixture of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. "What is going on?" I demanded, crossing my arms, my voice rising. "Why are you two here together?" Daniel stood up, hands raised in a placating gesture. "It's not what it looks like, Emily," he started, but his voice faltered under my glare. "It looks pretty clear to me," I snapped. "You're here with my sister, laughing like nothing is wrong." Claire stood up too, but she looked lost, her eyes darting between us. I can explain," she said softly, stepping forward. But I took a step back, feeling a whirlwind of emotions crashing over me. "Explain what? That you're in love with my husband? Is that what you want to say?" "No! That's not it at all." Claire's voice trembled. "We were just talking. I swear. I didn't mean for this to happen." "Didn't mean for what to happen?" I shot back. "You think that excuses anything? You're my sister. How could you do this to me?" Daniel's face was a mask of regret, but I could see the shame swirling beneath the surface. "Emily, please. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't plan for this to happen." I felt the tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "What is this? Are you admitting that you've been seeing each other behind my back?" "Yes," he admitted finally, the weight of the truth hanging heavy between us. "But it started after." "After what?" I interrupted, anger boiling over. "After you fell in love with her? Is that what you're saying?" The world around me faded as I focused solely on their faces. Claire looked anguished, but I couldn't find any sympathy for her. This was a betrayal I never saw coming. The bond we had, the trust I'd placed in both of them, it all felt like ash in my mouth. Emily, Daniel said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. I love you, but I've fallen for Claire. I didn't mean for it to go this far. The words hit me like a slap. I felt as if the ground had crumbled beneath me, leaving me standing on a precipice of despair. You love her? I echoed, disbelief threading through my voice. After everything we've built together? Daniel's silence was more damning than any confession. I took a shaky step back, reeling from the betrayal. I can't believe this. I can't believe either of you. As I turned to leave, Claire called out, her voice cracking. Please. We can talk about this. But I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to hear any more excuses or rationalizations. I fled the park, the night air chilling my skin as I raced home. Tears streamed down my face, blurring my vision. I felt hollow, as if a part of me had been ripped away, leaving only a gaping void. Back at the house, I sat on the living room floor, the photo frame still in my hands. The laughter and love captured in that moment felt like a cruel joke now. I couldn't escape the memories, the weekends spent exploring new places, the quiet evenings curled up on the couch, the shared dreams of a future that now seemed unreachable. In the following days, the reality of what had happened settled in like a heavy fog. I moved through life in a daze, going through the motions but feeling disconnected from everything around me. Friends reached out, concerned by my sudden withdrawal. I accepted their invitations to lunch and coffee, but I felt like a ghost, drifting through conversations without truly engaging. I remember one afternoon sitting with my friend Sarah at a cafe, staring blankly at my coffee cup. You need to confront them, she urged gently. You deserve closure. Closure? I scoffed, shaking my head. What good will that do? They've already made their choice. Still, you deserve to hear it from them. You deserve to understand. Her words resonated, even though I resisted the idea at first. Finally, after a few days of restless nights and heavy heartbeats, I decided I needed to talk to Daniel. I called him, my hands trembling as I held the phone to my ear. Can we meet? I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Of course. Where? He replied, his tone softer than I expected. We agreed to meet at a small diner on the edge of town, a place that held memories of simpler times. When I arrived, I felt a rush of conflicting emotions, anger, sadness, and a strange sense of resolve. Daniel was already there, sitting at a booth, his hands clasped together nervously. Hey, he said, looking up as I approached. Hey, I replied, sliding into the seat across from him. The air was thick with tension, and I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. I'm really sorry, Emily, he started, but I held up my hand to stop him. Let's skip the apologies for now, I said, forcing myself to stay calm. I just want to understand what happened. He nodded, his expression solemn. It's complicated. I never intended for things to go this way. It just happened. Complicated? I echoed, incredulous. What's complicated about cheating on your wife with her sister? I know how it looks, he said, running a hand through his hair. But feelings can be messy. I didn't plan to fall for Claire. It just happened. Did you ever think about what you were throwing away? What we had? My voice trembled with the weight of my emotions. I thought about it every day, he replied, his gaze earnest. But I couldn't help how I felt. A silence hung between us, heavy with unspoken words. I wanted to scream, to lash out at him for everything he had done. Instead, I took a deep breath, channeling my hurt into clarity. And you think you can just move on with her? Like this never happened? I don't know, he admitted, his honesty piercing through the fog of my anger. I just know that I can't be the person you need me to be anymore. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you started this, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I regret hurting you, he said. I really do. But I can't go back. My heart shattered a little more at his words. I realized then that the love we once shared had transformed into something unrecognizable. I was left grappling with the realization that Daniel, the man I had trusted with my heart, had chosen to walk away. As we sat in the diner, I could see the lines of age beginning to etch themselves into his face: worry, regret, guilt. But it was too late for us. Too much had changed. The bond we had built, once. For years past, since that painful confrontation, each one marked by both sorrow and unexpected growth, I found solace in a small apartment filled with plants, sunlight streaming through the windows, and the echoes of my son's laughter ringing through the halls. His name was Leo, a vibrant little boy with an insatiable curiosity and a smile that could light up the darkest days. The first year after the divorce was a blur of grief and adjustment. I had moved out of the house we had shared, the walls echoing with memories I could no longer bear. The initial sting of betrayal left me raw and vulnerable, but I slowly learned to pick up the pieces. I focused on my career, throwing myself into work as a way to distract myself from the pain. I had started working as a graphic designer at a small agency. My creativity became an outlet for my emotions, allowing me to channel my hurt into something beautiful. Each project was a new beginning, a chance to express the complexity of my feelings through colors and shapes. My colleagues became my support system, their encouragement helping me rediscover my strength. But the true turning point came when I found out I was pregnant. It was unexpected and overwhelming, but I decided to embrace this new chapter. The news initially terrified me. I had barely recovered from my marriage's collapse, and now I was faced with the responsibility of raising a child alone. But as I felt the first flutter of life within me, a sense of hope blossomed. I named my son Leo, inspired by the light he brought into my life. From the moment he was born, he filled my world with joy and purpose. Those first sleepless nights were a challenge, but I welcomed them, feeling grateful for each moment I spent with him. I reveled in the small milestones: his first smile, his first steps, the way he would gaze up at me with wide, trusting eyes. As Leo grew, so did my sense of identity. I realized I was no longer defined by my past. I was not just the woman who had been betrayed. I was a mother, a creator, a survivor. I poured my love into Leo, nurturing his dreams and encouraging his curiosity. He was my world, and I made sure he felt that every day. I also embraced the support of my friends. Sarah was always there, checking in on me, inviting me to lunch, and ensuring I didn't retreat too far into solitude. Our coffee dates turned into deep conversations about life, love, and the resilience of the human spirit. We shared laughter and tears, and each meeting reminded me of the strength that comes from connection. One sunny afternoon, we were sitting in our favorite cafe, a cozy spot with colorful decor and the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. Leo was playing with a set of crayons, happily coloring on a napkin while Sarah and I caught up. "You're doing such an amazing job, Emily," she said, her voice warm with admiration. "Leo is lucky to have you." I smiled, feeling a swell of pride. Some days are harder than others, but he's my motivation. I want him to see that life can be beautiful, even after heartbreak. "You're showing him that every day," Sarah replied. "And don't forget to take time for yourself too. You deserve it." Her words resonated, and I promised myself I would make time for self-care. Slowly, I began to rediscover who I was beyond being a mother. I started taking yoga classes, exploring new hobbies, and even re-engaging with friends from college. Each step forward felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that had been lost. Despite the joy Leo brought me, the past lingered like a shadow. I often thought of Daniel and Claire, of the life we could have had together. It was a strange, bittersweet feeling, one that occasionally crept in during quiet moments. I had come to terms with their choices, but the memories were hard to shake. Eventually, I learned that it was okay to feel a mix of emotions. I embraced the idea that healing is not linear, it ebbs and flows like the tide. Sometimes, I would feel angry, while other times I felt nothing at all. I allowed myself to sit with these feelings, understanding that they were part of my journey. As time went on, I felt a shift within myself. The anger that had once consumed me began to fade, replaced by a sense of gratitude for what I had created. I was learning to appreciate the beauty of new beginnings, the lessons that came from pain. I no longer wanted to dwell on the past, I wanted to focus on the present and the future. Leo and I formed a bond that was unshakable. He had a way of making even the simplest moments feel extraordinary. We spent weekends exploring the nearby parks, visiting the zoo, and indulging in ice cream treats. His laughter was a balm for my soul, a reminder of the joy that still existed in the world. One particularly memorable day, we took a trip to the local science museum. Leo was fascinated by the interactive exhibits, his eyes lighting up as he pressed buttons and marveled at the displays. I watched him with a heart full of love, grateful for the chance to experience these moments together. "Mom, look at this," he exclaimed, rushing over to a colorful display about the solar system. "Can we be astronauts?" "Absolutely. We can explore space together," I replied, kneeling beside him. He beamed up at me, and I couldn't help but smile back. I realized that my dreams for him were expanding beyond the everyday. I wanted him to believe that anything was possible. As I encouraged Leo to dream big, I also began to think about my own dreams. I wanted to pursue my passion for art more seriously. I started a small online shop, creating and selling prints of my work. It was a modest beginning, but it felt empowering to create something tangible that others could enjoy. In the evenings, after Leo was asleep, I would spend hours in my makeshift studio, surrounded by paint and canvas, pouring my heart into each piece. I found joy in the process, losing myself in the colors and textures. It was a form of therapy, a way to express everything I had been through. The more I painted, the more I found my voice. I began to receive positive feedback online, and slowly but surely, my shop gained traction. Each sale felt like a small victory, a validation of my hard work and resilience. It reminded me that even after the darkest storms, new opportunities could arise. As I embraced my journey as a mother and an artist, I also opened myself up to the idea of love again. It was daunting to think about dating after everything I had experienced, but I realized that I didn't want fear to dictate my life. I wanted to show Leo that love could take many forms and that it was worth pursuing. I started cautiously, attending local meetups and reconnecting with old friends. It was a gradual process, but I was surprised at how liberating it felt to put myself out there again. Each encounter reminded me that life was full of possibilities, even after heartbreak. Then, one evening, I attended an art gallery opening. It was a vibrant event filled with creativity and inspiration. As I wandered through the displays, I felt a sense of belonging, a connection to something larger than myself. While admiring a particularly striking painting, I felt a presence beside me. I turned to find a man studying the same piece. He was tall with warm brown eyes and a friendly smile. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, nodding toward the painting. "Absolutely," I replied, feeling a spark of connection. We began talking, sharing our thoughts about art and life. His name was Jake, and he was an illustrator. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and I felt a sense of ease I hadn't experienced in a long time. We exchanged numbers, and I left the gallery that night with a renewed sense of hope. It was a small step, but it felt significant, a reminder that life could still surprise me. Section 3, the surprise encounter. Months rolled by, and I found myself slowly weaving love back into the fabric of my life. Leo was thriving, and my art was gaining recognition. I had even started dating Jake, who was kind and supportive, bringing laughter and warmth into my world. Each date felt like a new adventure, a reminder that joy could exist alongside the scars of the past. One crisp autumn afternoon, Leo and I decided to visit the park. It was one of those perfect fall days, the leaves painted in vibrant reds and golds, and the air filled with the scent of earth and nostalgia. Leo bounded ahead, chasing after fallen leaves like they were butterflies, his laughter ringing through the trees. I took a moment to soak it all in, feeling grateful for the life I had built. The past still lingered, but it no longer defined me. I watched Leo as he played, his innocence and joy reminding me of the beauty of the present moment. As we rounded a bend in the path, I spotted a familiar figure in the distance. My heart dropped when I realized it was Daniel. He was sitting on a bench, a pensive look on his face, lost in thought. I felt a rush of emotions, fear, anger, confusion. After everything, seeing him again stirred up memories I had tried to compartmentalize. "Mom, look at that!" Leo called, pointing excitedly at a group of children playing nearby. I forced myself to breathe, reminding myself of how far I had come. I turned back to Leo, eager to focus on him, but a sinking feeling settled in my stomach. "Let's go check it out," I said, attempting to redirect my energy. Leo sprinted ahead, and I followed, trying to shake. As Leo sprinted toward the group of children playing tag, I found myself caught in a swirl of emotions. My heart raced, and my mind raced even faster, grappling with the memories of the past I thought I had left behind. Daniel had been a significant part of my life, but the pain of his betrayal felt like a wound that had only recently begun to heal. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I was stronger now, that I had built a life filled with love and purpose. "Mom! Look!" Leo shouted, laughter bubbling up from him as he ran in circles, his energy infectious. The way his eyes sparkled with joy grounded me in the present, and I forced myself to focus on him. As I approached, I saw the joy on his face, and I couldn't help but smile. The children were playing, darting in and out of the trees, their carefree laughter mixing with the rustling of leaves. I settled onto a nearby bench, keeping a watchful eye on Leo while trying to push away the unsettling feeling that lingered at the edge of my consciousness. But my attention kept drifting back to Daniel. He was still there, seated on a bench across the park, seemingly deep in thought. I could see the lines on his face that had formed over the years, the weariness of a man who had made choices he couldn't take back. The weight of his regret was palpable even from a distance, and a part of me felt a twinge of sympathy. I forced my gaze away from him and turned my attention back to Leo. He had joined a group of kids now, and they were all laughing, running after each other, the kind of joyful abandon that only children can exhibit. Watching him brought warmth to my heart, and I felt a rush of gratitude for the life I had created for us. But then, just as I was starting to feel at ease, I heard a voice behind me. "Emily?" I turned slowly, my heart dropping as I saw Daniel standing there, uncertainty etched on his face. My stomach twisted as I processed the reality of the situation. "What are you doing here?" I managed to ask, my voice steady but guarded. I came to clear my head," he said, glancing over at Leo, who was obliviously enjoying his playtime. "I didn't expect to see you." "Clearly," I replied, crossing my arms defensively. The tension between us was palpable, a complex web of emotions we had yet to untangle. "Leo looks great," he said after a moment, trying to break the ice. "He's grown so much." "Thank you," I replied, unable to hide the edge in my voice. "He's doing well. He keeps me busy." Daniel nodded, his gaze drifting back to Leo. I could see the conflict in his eyes, a mix of nostalgia and regret. "I'm glad to hear that," he said softly. "I've missed a lot." The weight of his words hung between us. I could feel the anger I had worked so hard to overcome bubbling just beneath the surface. "You made your choices, Daniel." "I can't change that," I said, my voice firmer now. "I know," he replied, looking down at the ground. "I've had a lot of time to think about everything. I realize now how much I took for granted." I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to tell him everything I had felt during those dark days, the anger, the despair, the feeling of being utterly alone. But the other part of me, the part that had grown stronger, wanted to keep moving forward, not dwell on the past. "I'm not here to reopen old wounds," he continued. "I just wanted to see how you were doing. To see Leo." "Why now?" I asked, my voice tinged with skepticism. After everything that happened, why would you want to see us? I've been thinking about you both a lot, he admitted. I've made mistakes, and I know I can't fix them. But I want to be a part of Leo's life, if he'll have me. The vulnerability in his voice caught me off guard. For a moment, I felt a flicker of empathy for the man I had once loved, the man who had hurt me so deeply. But then I remembered the years of pain, the long nights filled with heartache, and the hard work it took to rebuild my life. Being a part of his life isn't just about showing up, Daniel, I said, my voice steady but firm. It's about being there consistently, being someone he can trust. You can't just decide you want to be a father now because you feel guilty. I know that, he said, his voice earnest. I've been thinking about how I can make amends. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to try. Leo came running over, breathless and flushed from his play. Mom! Look what I found, he exclaimed, holding up a shiny rock he had picked up from the ground. Wow, that's beautiful, I said, kneeling beside him. Where did you find it? Over there. Leo pointed toward a small pile of leaves. Can I keep it? Of course, it's yours. I smiled, watching his face light up with excitement. Daniel observed the interaction with a mixture of admiration and longing. He's really something, he said quietly. I could feel the tension between us shifting slightly, but I was still wary. He is, I replied, turning back to Leo. He's my world. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, and I could sense he was grappling with his emotions. I wish I could have been there for you both, he admitted. I regret missing all of this. I glanced back at Leo, who was now examining his new treasure with wide eyes. It's not that simple, I said, my voice steady. You can't just come in and out of his life whenever it's convenient for you. I understand that, he replied, his sincerity shining through. But I'm ready to take responsibility. I want to be a part of his life, even if it's just in small ways at first. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, and it stirred something within me. Could he really be sincere? Was it possible that he had changed? But the memories of our past clung to me like shadows, and I couldn't forget the hurt so easily. Leo is happy, Daniel, I said carefully. I don't want to disrupt that. He's been through enough. I wouldn't want to disrupt anything, he said quickly. There was a long pause. I just want the chance to prove that I can be there for him. I had built a life for Leo filled with love and stability. I didn't want to jeopardize that, but I also recognized that Leo had a right to know his father, even if the road ahead was uncertain. Let me think about it, I said finally. I need to talk to Leo about this too. It's not just my decision. Of course, Daniel said, relief washing over his features. I understand. I just hope that someday you'll feel comfortable letting me back in. I can't promise anything, I replied, my voice firm. But I appreciate that you're willing to try. He nodded, and I could see the determination in his eyes. As I looked at him, I realized that I didn't just see the man who had hurt me, I saw a father who was trying to make amends. It was complicated, and I still felt a mix of emotions swirling within me. Leo ran back to us, his eyes shining with excitement. Can we go play more, Mom? He asked, tugging on my arm. Sure, buddy. Just a moment, I said, turning back to Daniel. We'll talk again soon. Thank you, Emily, he said, his voice earnest. I appreciate it. As Leo darted back to his friends, I felt a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Could Daniel truly change? Could we navigate this complex new reality together? I didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a long while, I felt the possibility of healing hovering in the air. The days that followed were filled with contemplation. I spoke with Sarah, who encouraged me to take my time and make the best decision for Leo. You're his protector, she reminded me. Trust your instincts. With each passing day, I observed Leo, watching him thrive in his little world, completely unaware of the shifting dynamics around him. He was a joyful child, full of life and curiosity, and I couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. Finally, after much deliberation, I decided it was time for Leo to meet his father. I wanted him to have the chance to form his own opinions, to create his own memories. I reached out to Daniel, suggesting we meet at the park again, this time with Leo. The day of the meeting arrived, and my heart raced with anticipation and anxiety. I could only imagine how Leo would react. As we approached the park, I held Leo's hand tightly, sensing the excitement building within him. "Are we going to see the big slide?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Yes, but we're also going to meet someone special," I said, trying to gauge his reaction. "Who?" he asked, tilting his head in curiosity. "Remember I told you about your dad?" I replied gently. His expression shifted slightly, a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. "Oh. Can I ask him questions?" "Of course. You can ask him anything you want," I assured him. As we arrived, I spotted Daniel sitting on the same bench where we had last spoken. He looked up and smiled, a mix of nervousness and hope etched on his face. I took a deep breath, ready to navigate this new terrain together. "Hey, Leo. This is your dad," I said, kneeling beside him to encourage him to approach Daniel. Leo looked up at me, then at Daniel, his expression cautious but curious. "Hi," he said, his voice small but steady. "Hi, Leo," Daniel replied, his eyes lighting up with joy. "It's so nice to finally meet you." They exchanged glances, and I could see the tension in the air. I stepped back slightly, giving them space to interact. "You can talk and play together." "I'll be right here," I assured Leo, feeling both anxious and hopeful. Leo took a few tentative steps toward Daniel, who smiled warmly at him. "Do you like to play outside?" Daniel asked, trying to break the ice. "Yeah. I like the big slide," Leo replied, his enthusiasm bubbling over. "That sounds fun. I'd love to go down the slide with you," Daniel said, his excitement genuine. As they began to interact, I felt a mix of emotions wash over me. I watched them play, a hesitant smile creeping onto my face. It was strange to see Daniel with Leo, to witness him taking an active interest in his son's life. The afternoon unfolded with laughter and tentative connections. Leo showed Daniel his favorite climbing spots, and Daniel responded with enthusiasm, encouraging him to climb higher. I watched from a distance, my heart swelling with a strange blend of joy and caution. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I called them back to sit on the bench. "Okay, time for a break," I said, watching Leo flop down beside me, grinning from ear to ear. "Can we do it again, Mom?" Leo asked, breathless with excitement. "Of course, buddy," I replied, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. Daniel sat beside us, a comfortable silence settling in as we shared this moment as a family. I could see the happiness in his eyes as he watched Leo, and for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps this could work. "Thank you for giving me this chance, Emily," Daniel said quietly, breaking the silence. "It means a lot." I nodded, unsure of where this path would lead us, but willing to explore it for Leo's sake. "Let's take it one step at a time," I replied. As we watched Leo chase after his friends once more, I felt a sense of possibility blooming within me. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew we would navigate it together, one step at a time. And as the sun set on that perfect autumn day, I felt the first flickers of healing ignite in my heart, a reminder that sometimes, even the most tangled of pasts could lead to new beginnings.